So going into this movie, I was very much afraid that I would end up missing part of it because I was running a wee bit late due to things that were completely out of my control, and yeah, it's a real great tragedy whenever that happens, isn't it? I mean, I fucking hate being late for anything, especially a movie. Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome to another episode of First Impressions. On today's episode, Guillermo del Toro and André Øvredal team up to bring Alvin Schwartz's scary stories to tell in the dark to the big screen. The movie is set in 1968. It's Halloween night in Mill Valley, Pennsylvania, and three friends, Zoe Colletti's Stella, Gabriel Rush's Augie, and Austin Zajur's Chuck, stumble across the creepy old mansion that once belonged to the Bellows family, who founded the town and harboured a dark secret involving their daughter Sarah, the family outcast who has written a book full of scary stories. And when the trio takes the book from its nesting place, they inadvertently unleash a curse upon the entire town, as Sarah Bellows begins telling stories from beyond the grave that begin coming true, and Stella, Augie and Chuck, along with Michael Garza's Ramon and Natalie Ganzhorn's Ruth, must uncover the truth and stop the curse before they all end up falling victim to Bellows' stories. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is adapted from the series of books by Alvin Schwartz with illustrations by Stephen Gammell, and while my knowledge of the series is largely limited to those illustrations, I was really looking forward to this movie, mainly because of the talent involved. Guillermo del Toro is writing and producing, or more specifically, he wrote the story, and you also have André Øvredal, a Norwegian filmmaker best known for his work on The Troll Hunter and The Autopsy of Jane Doe, as the director. And one thing this movie does an absolutely fantastic job at doing is building up atmosphere. Øvredal definitely shows his skill in creating an unsettling mood, particularly in an early scene involving a scarecrow. Admittedly, I do think there's maybe a few too many jump scares throughout the film, but the direction and mood created throughout mostly makes up for that. And what really caught me off guard about this film is just how dark it is. Like, this movie is really dark in tone. Even though it carries a PG-13 and the book series that it's based on is primarily geared towards children, it's not exactly a film I would recommend taking the kids to see. Goosebumps, this certainly ain't. This does not pull any punches when it comes to killing off characters, and it feels more at home in a Stephen King story than an R.L. Stine one. However, that does also mean that certain aspects of the movie can be a little bit predictable, particularly in the way that the book works. Whenever a story is written down in the book, you kind of know that it's going to become true, and it doesn't really take a lot of guesswork as to what the character's fate is going to be. Take the character of Ruth, for example. For most of the movie, she struggles with a massive zit on her cheek, so you know that that zit is going to really come back and bite her on the ass in a big way. Figuratively and literally speaking. But the film is still able to mine a lot of tension and horror out of these scenarios, and whether or not the characters are going to be able to save someone from being killed, or how a certain character is going to be killed, it still works, even despite some of it being a tad bit predictable. And I also gotta admit, I do think the film starts out a little bit shaky. It all feels a little bit conventional and a little bit typical. But as it progresses, it really begins to pick up steam. The second half of the movie is really damn good, with some really creepy and unsettling thrills, and quite a few scenes that did genuinely get under my skin. Although for me personally, the scariest scene in the film is where the characters listen to an old recording being played on a phonograph machine. Even though you don't see what's happening, you can hear every last detail, and it's fucking horrifying. It's a very minor scene in the long run, but certainly a very effective one, in my opinion. It's also in the second half where we manage to learn a wee bit more about the mysteries surrounding Sarah Bellows, and some of the big reveals that happen in the second half of this film. I'm not gonna lie, they are genuinely pretty disturbing in their own rights. And on top of all that, you also get some really cool creature designs. You've all probably seen the Pale Lady in the film's advertising, and she looks really horrifying and grotesque. There's also some other really cool monsters too, including one that looks like it walked right out of Silent Hill. And if you're going into this movie looking for some neat monster excitement, I think you're definitely gonna like this. I will admit though, I do think most of the main characters in this film are all very typical of the genre. Our lead characters are all misfits. Stella wants to be a horror writer, Augie's a bit neurotic, Chuck's almost a wee bit like Richie from It, only he's not nearly as foul-mouthed, and he also doesn't get along very well with Ruth, his sister, which really reminds me a lot of Mike and Nancy Wheeler from Stranger Things. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this character literally feels like it was written for Finn Wolfhard to play. And then you even have a sociopathic bully character who manages to make Billy Hargrave and Henry Bowers look tame by comparison. And yeah, the characters are mainly archetypes, but they're mostly likeable ones except for the bully character. And the actors all do a really good job, despite being mostly complete unknowns. Zoe Colletti, I think, especially shines in the lead role and feels very believable, especially in the film's more emotional scenes. Overall, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a solid film, even if I personally think it might have benefited from a slightly more anthology-like structure, something akin to Tales from the Crypt or Creepshow. It is a little too reliant on jump scares, and the characters do kind of feel a little bit too much like archetypes, but the creepy atmosphere, the fantastic direction, the awesomely designed monsters, the great performances managed to make up for that to a certain degree. I'm gonna give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a strong 7 out of 10. I do recommend seeing this film if you're a fan of Del Toro's work and you're just waiting for something, anything to tide you over until his next masterpiece comes out. I'd say this is definitely worth checking out. And while I wouldn't quite rank this alongside Us and Midsommar as being the best horror films of the year, it is still a very effective one regardless, and I'd happily watch this over Pet Sematary or The Curse of La Llorona or even Math for that matter. Yeah, looking back on Pet Sematary especially, I feel like I was way too nice to that movie when it came out. So Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, have you seen it yet? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even consider subscribing to my channel while you're at it. And don't forget to hit the bell icon if you're already subscribed. That way you'll be notified whenever a new video is out. If there's anything I can do to improve my videos or my presentation, do let me know. I'm always happy to hear feedback as long as it's somewhat constructive. And if you want to follow me on social media or support me on Patreon or check out my website, links are below down in the description. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.